This morning here in Washington, D.C., anti-Israel protesters snarled rush hour traffic demanding a ceasefire in Gaza. Of course, there had been a ceasefire in Gaza from 2014 until October 7th of this last year, when Hamas busted that ceasefire with its slaughter of Israelis. So this morning, several protesters blocked multiple major roadways. Some protesters chained themselves together. The protest group posted on social media, quote, "Every U.S. government war criminal coming to work today will have their commute disrupted," end quote. Now, the group claims at least 20 of its members were arrested. Also protesting today, U.S. government employee whose salaries you pay. Those government workers have formed a group they have named Feds United for Peace. They include employees from more than 24 government agencies, including the State Department and the Defense Department. Today, those government employees vowed to hold a hunger strike to protest the Biden administration's support for Israel. So how long is their hunger strike? How long is it going to last? Well, they told the media just one day. I'm not sure if anyone cares it would be moved too much to do anything by a bunch of government employees skipping lunch and dinner for one day, but maybe I'm wrong and I digress. Still, other protesters were seen setting up tents outside Secretary of State Antony Blinken's home in Virginia, and there are more protests in Pennsylvania. UPenn faculty were seen blocking building entrances and staging a die-in in support of Palestinians. Meanwhile, an update on the United Nations organization called UNRA. As you know, for years, and to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars, the United States, meaning you, have helped fund UNRA. UNRWA is supposed to provide aid to Palestinians. However, numerous UNRWA staffers have been accused of helping Hamas terrorists in their October 7th massacre of Israelis. Yesterday, UNRWA's communications director spoke to NPR.
The Commissioner General has terminated the contracts of these staff members. He also asked for an investigation that is now being conducted.
The U.S. ambassador is calling for fundamental changes to UNRWA. Are you heeding those calls, and what kind of changes would you make?
Look, I think the need right now is to focus on the humanitarian response in Gaza. That is the top concern for us, also because famine is around the corner. We do know that there are pockets of starvation and pockets of hunger, especially in the north of Gaza. We're not able to bring in enough supplies. We should. There should be more efforts exerted on the Israeli authorities to allow us to do our work, UNRWA and other UN agencies. And when the war is over, then it might be a different discussion.
Spokesperson for the Israeli Prime Minister's office, Tal Heinrich, joins me. Good evening. And in listening to the fact that the Secretary General of the UN has fired the 10 or 12 who are accused of helping Hamas, I don't know if there are more, I must say it's quite shocking to me is that they only do that once they, quote, get caught. And it's almost like that they're money launderers. And to think of all the taxpayer money for so long, hundreds of millions of dollars have been going to the UN, to this organization, yet nobody even bothered to look to see how the money was spent. I mean, I'm horrified, and I'm sure you're even more horrified.
Of course, Greta, and you're right. UNRWA cannot be trusted to investigate itself. UNRWA cannot be trusted to reform itself. You know, this is a UN agency, but in fact, it's a Palestinian-run agency under the auspices of the United Nations. And it is flawed on so many different levels, Greta, beginning with its mere existence. And its entire focus is to delegitimize the existence of the state of Israel by giving a fraudulent status of refugees to millions of Palestinians. That's the entire essence of UNRWA. It perpetuates the conflict. With the most outrageous development as of recently, what you just reported being the involvement of 13 of its members in the atrocities of October 7th. UNRWA is the
but the thing that's horrifying.
It's not just.
But you know what's horrifying?
I'll just say this,
is they never bothered to look.
It's not just us saying it. It's also Palestinians on the ground because they know it. We've seen in recent days videos emerging of Palestinians in Gaza telling IDF soldiers, "Don't leave Gaza before you eliminate Hamas," and they are cursing UNRWA to the camera. cameras.
All right. Well, I'd say I've got a lot of unfortunate thoughts about not just the UN and this, because I think they're just money launderers. They never bothered to look, or maybe they're complicit as they handed out the money. But you've got a situation like Qatar that's now helping negotiate some sort of pause or ceasefire. Meanwhile, they are supporting Hamas leaders. I mean, remember shortly after October 7th, I ran video of these Hamas leaders living in splendor, celebrating the slaughter of the Israelis. Yet they're now the ones they've been trying to help negotiate it. They would not be my first choice.
Well, exactly the people that you're describing, the Hamas leaders that are not on the ground in Gaza, they are the ones who are the hardliners in the negotiations. We are pursuing, as you know, diplomatic avenues of also through Qatar to try to create another framework which will see the release of more hostages. Qatar says that this special relationship that they have with Hamas leaders is something that can benefit the civilized world, can benefit Western countries, including the United States, Israel, and the burden of proof is on them.
All right, let me leave you one last thought. I'm going to take the last word on this, is that in 2004, the United States indicted a Hamas leader. He has been living in London. Why in the world the U.S. does not extradite him and UK send him over according to this? I don't know what our State Department's waiting for and our Department of Justice, but, you know, all these governments, to me, they make me a little sick. You know, how they spend money, what they're doing. But I'm taking the last word. Tal Heinrich, thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Greta.